the powerful language of Trevor Jones. Even as a young boy, he wanted to be a film composer in a community full of poverty and hardship.
South Africa at that point for me was an incredibly intense place in terms of the politics of the country, the politics of the community, like District 6, the fact that my immediate family, my parents were divorced, and the family was split up, fragmented, and so I kind of became very insular. You know, I remember when I was 5 years old, that schoolyard on Chapel Street, I remember walking around on my first day humming Schubert's Eighth. Now, what I'm doing at the age of 5, humming Schubert's Eighth, I don't know, but I distinctly remember that tune and knowing it because it was such a beautiful tune.
He makes his way back to his old schoolyard in Cape Town.
You know, this brings back the most extraordinary memories in that suddenly I have a boulevard through my life, a 6-lane motorway. I had no inkling that the mountain existed. A, I was very small, 5 years old, and B, there was a building that ran the length of this. This new highway just cuts across it. But this building was so high, as you can see from the existing, what remains of the outline of it, it just stretched right across the face of the mountain, and I never saw the mountain as a child. My life was blinkered. I saw very little of Cape Town. I experienced very little of Cape Town other than a place that I wanted to get away from when I was a child. My ambition was to get on the mail ship and never return. This used to be where my aunt lived.
Yeah.
I had an aunt who had a house here when it was District 6.
Okay, yeah.
She lived here. This was not here when I
No,
was...
yeah, that wasn't here.
This is all new. Thank you. Thank you so much. My mother stitched this dear old thing. Passed away last year. This is my spiritual home, you know, this is where it was the coolest place to be in the heat. And it was the place where you came to just to be quiet, just to have quiet time and to contemplate, I suppose. I was particularly religious when I was a child. When I was younger, before I went to England, not that I lost my faith or anything, but I tended to spend more time in prayer here. There was one point where I was contemplating whether to go into the church because my grandmother was very keen for me to do that. But after a week in a kind of seminary situation, they brought to my attention that I'd spent most of the time playing the organ in the church, and perhaps I could serve God better by being a musician, which is a very tactful way of saying I should really concentrate on my music, which I'm terribly grateful for, really. It was sound advice in my case. The community seemed to be, you know, an integrated community. Christians and Muslims live side by side. Of course, District 6 comprises so many nationalities and there were Jewish people, and there didn't seem to be any religious boundaries in those days that separated people. And this was very much what District 6 was about. It was about tolerance, and you were who you were. People accepted you for what you were. And the whole process, I think, of demarcating between the communities, people within the community, was something that went against the grain of what the political system was trying to set up. So the fact that it didn't survive came as a major shock to my system. And it really is incredible that so many phenomenal talents came out of this community. So many people that should now be role models and you know, that other people can look up to and be proud of their achievements and what they still try to do for this society and for this country. I think it's a very exciting time, and I'm terribly pleased to be back. I was so appalled by being here. I was affronted. I said to my mother, I was a very belligerent person. You don't get on in the world without a certain degree of belligerency. And my aim was to save up for the best compass in the world so that I could walk north out of South Africa.
At 17, Jones won a scholarship to attend the Royal Academy of Music in London and left his homeland on the weekly mail ship, as he once dreamed.
When I stood on that boat, I felt I will never return to this country because apartheid will never be dismantled. And because of that, the poignancy of my departure was even stronger. I knew when I looked over the harbour and past Robben Island, and I thought, Mandela will never leave this island and I will never return. And who's luckier? There was a great deal of trepidation about my going. I knew England was very wet and very cold. I wasn't looking forward to that. But at the same time, it was an opportunity to study at one of the world's top institutions.
After completing his studies at the Royal Academy, Jones worked at the BBC as a classical music reviewer. He then returned to academia, gaining his honours and masters in music, and became the first composer to attend the National Film School in England, a path which led him to become an award-winning composer, known for film scores in Hollywood blockbusters such as Notting Hill, Last of the Mohicans, G.I. Jane and Mississippi Burning. Looking forward, Jones is keen to assist the next generation of composers in South Africa by funding a scholarship to the National Film and Television School in England.
I think South Africa could do with having a plan which sets out to educate the next few generations. That's the investment in the future, because the people are the most important thing in the country. You can have diamond, gold reserves, platinum, uranium reserves coming out of your ears, but without people, it means nothing.